we talk of governance, we, I think, have to talk of corruption and the theme of anti-corruption. Coming from a more, I would say, analytical standpoint, what would you say?
Well, let's go back to 2015. I mean, that election was largely about accountability. Accountability in the North and East was, I think, very much related to the allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity and all of that. In the South, it was about the Rajapaksa plundering of the state capture by the Rajapaksa regime. So the Aragale, in a sense, was the desperation on the part of the public at large with regard to it. And I think the JVP, NPP, has captured the essence of that and brought in a government which is placing responsibility on accountability. Now, so you have a number of officials and politicians who've been asked to go to the CID, to the TID, they've come out on bail. There are a number of things happening that this is actually happening now. There is the one other thing, of course, and that is that if it continues like asking X and Y and Z to keep going to CID, TID, whatever, that might become a bit of it might feed the perception of that it's a distraction from not doing anything on the policy side.
For now, like you said, for now things are, actions are taking place, things are happening and have not yet been associated with any issues of corruption. Is this momentum and effort sustainable? It should be.
Well, one hopes and prays that it will be and that the current dispensation will not be have allegations of corruption leveled against them. There is certain information coming out, and the government also talks about that the bureaucracy is not necessarily aligned with government policies, but that the emphasis on corruption leads bureaucrats to be inhibited in terms of even signing a check. It has to be something that functions efficiently and smoothly, and at the same time, yes, has an effective way of monitoring corruption and catching hold of it.
Sri Lanka seems to be having development on the economic front, but what about the social front? We spoke about all of this and more with Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu. Stay tuned.
When you have an ambition, trust your instincts, move forward. This is your moment to shape your future, to be independent, to strengthen yourself. Your time is now. Accelerate your progress, empowering your progress for a fulfilled life. Union Assurance.
For 30 years, LMD has been the voice of business in Sri Lanka, capturing the pulse of the nation's corporate landscape through its iconic covers. Each cover tells a story, from the first edition in 1994 to the present day, narrating key moments, leaders and trends that have shaped Sri Lanka's business ecosystem. Over the years, LMD covers have featured thought leaders, business pioneers and game-changing innovations, reflecting the evolution of industries and the economy. As we celebrate 30 years, these covers represent more than just publications. They are a testament to LMD's legacy of excellence in business journalism and its unwavering commitment to being Sri Lanka's leading voice of business. LMD, Sri Lanka's voice of business, a legacy of 30 years.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. The topic of conversation today is governance. And I'm here with the founder and executive director of Center for Policy Alternatives, Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
When we talk of governance, we, I think, have to talk of corruption and the theme of anti-corruption. Now, what we're seeing is that there appears to be a shift in public perspective regarding Sri Lanka's governance, especially with all the measures that the Sri Lanka government is taking to curb bribery and corruption. But coming from a more, I would say, analytical standpoint, what would you say?
Well, let's go back to 2015. I mean, that election was largely about accountability. Accountability in the north and east was, I think, very much related to the allegations of war crimes and crimes against humanity and all of that. In the south, it was about the Rajapaksa plundering of the state capture by the Rajapaksa regime. And as we know, those promises were not fulfilled. So the Aragale, in a sense, was the desperation on the part of the public at large with regard to it. And I think the JVP, NPP, has captured the essence of that and brought in a government which is placing responsibility on accountability. Now, so you have a number of officials and politicians who've been asked to go to the CID, to the TID, they've come out on bail. There are a number of things happening with regard to that, and I think the population in general is quite happy that this is actually happening now. Now, it's still a far cry from getting the convictions and all of that, but I think after a point you do this, there are two possible things that could happen. One is that people might start losing patience because they don't see convictions. Yeah, and so one has to explain to them that it will take some time, and money that has been taken abroad may never come back, as in the Marcos case. The other one, of course, is that you need to carry the people along with you in terms of communication. And you need to sort of tell them that, look, you know, it's not going to take some time, but yes, we're on it, and we're going to do something with regard to it. So those, if you carry the people along, if you continue that conversation, I think you might be able to succeed. There is the one other thing, of course, and that is that if it continues like asking X and Y and Z to keep going to CID, TID, whatever, that might become a bit of a, it might feed the perception of that it's a distraction from not doing anything on the policy side.
Of course. And I want to talk to you more about that, for sure. And for now, like you said, for now things are, I mean, actions are taking place, things are happening, and from what we're seeing, the government, which is about to, I think, complete 1 year very soon, have not yet been associated with any, you know, issues of corruption. However, everything has been on emergency mode, and there's so much of dedication and commitment right from the president down to the lower levels of you know, governance. So is this momentum and effort sustainable? It should be. Well,
one hopes and prays that it will be, and that the current dispensation will not be have allegations of corruption leveled against them. But as the cynics would say, it's early days.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. But you know, the problem here also is that there is certain information coming out, and the government also talks about that the bureaucracy is not necessarily aligned with government policies, but that the emphasis on corruption leads bureaucrats to be inhibited in terms of even signing a check.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so it has to be something that functions efficiently and smoothly, and at the same time, yes, has an effective way of monitoring corruption and catching hold of it.
So you think that it's more reasoning right now and not intuition?
Well, it's probably a combination of the two. But we need to get an administration that is corruption-free, but also works efficiently. Because let's face it, the social contract in this country is in pieces.
Yes.
Every area that you look in, the institutions and processes are not functioning in the way that they were intended to. So to get that up and working is a gigantic task. I mean, one cannot minimize it, but we hope that we have enough evidence to indicate that the government is sincere and willing and is putting us on that path to recovery.
True. And in terms of putting us on the path to recovery from the policy side of things, like you mentioned before, yes, all the actions are regarding, you know, catching everyone, you know, doing what's needed. However, we need some demonstrable action on the policy side as well. Are they in a position to get this done now?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, people say that they have never run a government before, that there are a lot of new people who do not have the experience. Maybe some of them have the expertise, but don't necessarily have the experience. Now, my point, as I said to you, the social contract is in pieces and we don't have much time to spend for people to learn how to govern before they begin to govern, as it were. So in 2027, we will finish the IMF deal, and we will have to have what? Something like $13 billion in order to start paying back. Now we've got about 5 or 6, and there are other factors, because the 5 or 6 come from remittances from abroad and tourism, and given the situation in the Middle East and all of that, all of those things could be put into jeopardy. I hope it does not happen that way. But I think the key thing here is that the government needs to reach out to those people who might know or have the experience of how to govern, you know, or their experience in governance and government, and that it doesn't seem to be doing. Now, I don't know why. Maybe they have their own notion of what constitutes civil society, and they're dealing with them. But they need to reach out, and they need to communicate to the people at large as to what they're planning. Slowly, I think we're getting the sort of development initiatives being announced. We have the digitalization, we have the education reforms, but everything seems to be going into committee and consultations. We don't know who they are consulting and who constitutes really these committees. It's an odd situation, because here you had a political party who went on about transparency and accountability when they were in opposition. But now they seem to be the most opaque government that we've got in terms of decision making. And that's something that they need to deal with. You know, they need to carry the people along with them. Because, you know, at the end of the day, if it's the bureaucracy, and let's take the bureaucracy, 1.4 million people in a bureaucracy for 22 or 23 million people is horrendous. It's unsustainable. You have to get rid of them, but you just can't kick them out. You have to change them in terms of retrain them, provide other opportunities and all of that. That conversation needs to begin, because essentially they're talking to their own voters.
Exactly.
You know, and the pushback, to the extent that there will be pushback, will really seriously come from within the constituency that put them in power, not the opposition. Because the opposition at the present moment seems to be rather weak.
It's time now to take a very short break, but we'll soon be back to talk more about governance.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Welcome back to the show. We're in conversation with the founder and executive director of Center for Policy Alternatives, Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu. Going to talk about something a little separate, but I think you paved the way towards that. The government is continuing its reforms in terms of state-owned enterprises and taking measures to also ensure governance in that regard. But of course, we can't forget that there's an unsustainable number of public servants in SOEs, and also that many of them seem to be making millions of losses, which it doesn't look as if we can do anything at the moment, at least through the foreseeable future. What should these reforms really look like in the short run and in the medium term?
Well, I mean, with regard to the highly overpopulated civil service, we must think in terms of where we need expertise and provide that, whether it be vocational training, whether it be IT education, whatever. We need to build up their capability to either go into the public service, back again into the public service and perform a job efficiently, a job that's needed competently, or go out into the private sector and chance their luck. You know, but that needs to be done fast, because we are also in an aging population. You know, and then AI and all of that is coming through. That's something I think that could be done. Likewise with the army, with the armed forces. You know, back in 2009, I said that, look, we should have something like a Marshall Plan for the North and East, and you should have probably a GI Bill where the huge recruitment that was done to fight and win the war was not going to be sustainable in peacetime, and therefore you had to provide them with, again, capabilities and competence to go out into the private sector. I mean, if you look at Sri Lanka, just take the city of Colombo, for example, there are not enough plumbers and electricians and whatever, So there is a dignity of labor in all of that. And we had the German tech colleges.
Yes.
But of course, there was the risk that you get qualification from the German tech college and then go abroad. Yeah, but
it happened too.
But that's something that, preventative measures have to be taken. But those are things I think that the government needs to look at. And now it's going into its second year. It doesn't have a heck of a lot of time because, as I said, 2027 is going to be when the IMF deal expires. 2029 is when we come around to presidential and general election year. Now, in those years, governments, political parties tend to make all sorts of promises, which could very well undermine whatever success they have had when they were in government. So it's a bit dangerous, I think, in terms of what we could end up with in the future.
Interesting. Dangerous, and also we're running out of time, like you said.
Absolutely.
In a previous answer, you mentioned how the government has to carry the public, along with them in terms of communication. In terms of reforms, let's say talking about strengthening governments in SOEs, how can the public play a role there? What should the public's role be?
Well, the JVP has a broad network in this country in terms of their political party officers, etc. They should get those people in those offices to meet with maybe smaller groups. The government needs to put out more information with regard to what it is doing, and it also needs to tell us why it is not doing what it promised. Because, for example, we've talked about the economy and about the public sector and all of that, but take abolition of the PTA, of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, repeal and replacement. What's happening?
Yes.
Abolition of the online safety bill, nothing is happening. Reform and reorganization of public prosecutions, that is reform of the Attorney General's office, nothing's happening. Now the government is saying that it is going to change the composition or the structure of the Constitutional Council to make sure that when a new government comes in, they will nominate new members to the Constitutional Council. Now that is really fundamentally autocratic. Because the whole idea of the Constitutional Council was that it was there to look after state institutions, not government institutions. So again, they said that they would come up with constitutional reform, third year, fourth year, or whatever. We have no indication that that's going to happen. Then, of course, provincial council elections. There is no indication that they will hold it this year. There is very little indication that they'll hold it next year as well. So if they are talking about constitutional reform or whatever, I don't think provincial councils are going to feature.
Is that going to work?
Well, they'll argue that before 1987 we didn't have provincial councils and that government worked. But they don't understand that, they have to look into that outstanding issue, which is about unity and reconciliation and all of that, that is settling that constitutional question of a political settlement of that conflict. So you can't be so totally heartless, or you can't sort of say, look, we have to get this IMF thing right and we can't focus on anything else. They have to remind themselves they are the government of the country.
Dr. Saravanamuttu, I can't believe the time has flown, but then it has. As my last question, you did mention that we are seeing development of some sort economically. Slowly but surely we're seeing some progress in terms of overcoming the ripple effects of the crisis. However, we cannot forget that there has been almost no action development on the social front, and the social fabric is, I would say, very, very delicate right now. How urgent is action needed here, and what are your recommendations?
You see, as I said, with the IMF thing finishes in 27. If we don't have $13 billion to start paying back our foreign debt, we'll have to go back to the IMF, I guess. And if we go back to the IMF, their conditionalities are going to be much stricter.
Of course.
Now, at the same time, if the options of going out of the country to the Middle East as migrant labor, or in terms of apparel because of the tariffs and all of that, if those options are closing in, then people are going to be stuck here.
Yeah.
Now, I think what happened in the past is that people took up an AK-47 when they didn't have options. Then they went looking for visas to get out of the country. Now, it might be going back to the AK-47s. I hope and pray that's not the case. But it is that constituency that voted for this government, I think that's going to be most badly affected at the end of the day. And one hopes that if there is to be an Arugala, it will be a peaceful one.
One hopes indeed. We've been in conversation with the founder and executive director of Centre for Policy Alternatives, Dr. Paikiasothy Saravanamuttu. Thank you very much again.
Thank you.
And thank you to all our viewers for joining us. Until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram and X. Thank you for watching and stay safe.